Hi, I'm Gavin Carlson, and this is Out of Bounds, Daily Bruin Sports Podcast. The Bruins traveled to Corvallis, and they took a loss. Is Dante Moore holding this team back? Is Chip Kelly holding this program back? Let's discuss. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Out of Bounds, the official sports podcast of the Daily Bruin. By now, you know the drill. I'm your host, Gavin Carlson, a fourth-year sports senior staff writer, but I think the bigger story is that we have the return of the one and only Jack Nelson. He had a little vacation. He's looking good. Jack, fourth-year senior sports staff writer, how are you doing? How does it feel to be back?
I am very tired, I will admit. The jet lag is killing me. I was just in Taiwan for a little week-long excursion.
Amazing.
Absolute blast. But excited to be back. As the legendary Michael Jordan once said, I'm back. And I know that my very loyal listeners and viewers have been very sad to see me go these past week, and they're excited to have me back, and I'm excited to be back. So let's get to it.
There was people in the comments saying, where is Jack? I know that people, were hitting me up. Where is Jack? Where is Jack? He's here. Joseph is gone. We've got another duo. We're excited to break down what was a disappointing weekend for UCLA football. I was there in Corvallis as a number 18 UCLA football team went to a great environment. I'll be honest. It was a fantastic experience against a really good football team, a really good fan base, an angry fan base with the state of the Pac-12, the Pac-2, whatever you want to call it. But number 15, Oregon State, was able to put it on UCLA for most of the game, and UCLA falls 36-24. Like I said in the intro, is Dante Moore holding this team back? Let's just jump into it. 3 picks in the first half, and the stats about his first halves have been really ugly. 3 straight games with an interception on the opening drive and 3 straight games with a pick 6. His first game with 3 interceptions in a game, and it just went from bad to worse. There was some highlights in between, but the first interception stares down a defender. It was a rough start. What did you think of Dante's overall performance? Just talk about the interceptions, I'd say. The first one rolling to his left, kind of looks at a guy in the flat, looks him off, and just throws a ball way too late to Logan Loya. The second interception, there's a missed blocking assignment. He gets hit while he throws. You're not going to blame that one on him. And then the third one is just an awful pick 6. Dante's performance, what do you think?
Yeah, it seems like things are getting worse for Dante as the Pac-12 play continues, which, of course, is not what you want to see if you're a Bruins fan. But something that sticks out to me, I will admit I didn't get to watch that much of the game because the time zone difference is crazy in Taiwan. But I will say that it seems like he's really struggling with his pass accuracy so far in conference play. I mean, he hasn't even reached 55% pass completion for a single game. And twice he's below 50%. And so he's really struggling to hit his guys and either find open guys or just hit them when he can, and he has them open. And so I think just he's also struggling to find some accuracy in the red zone, especially with, passing touchdowns there. I mean, he hasn't had a single game with multiple passing touchdowns in Pac-12 play yet. And that being said, I personally expect him to have a better game against Oregon State comparatively to Washington State and Utah. I mean, Oregon State defense is not all that impressive this season. They were the best in the Pac-12 last year, but they're top 50 this season, not the same level they were as last year. But this was a game that I think a lot of us had as a bit of a shootout going into it. I know that listening to the pod that you and Joe had last week, it seemed like this was going to be a more of a shootout style game than we might have anticipated earlier in the season. But yeah, as you mentioned, just 3 straight games with the pick 6. That's a tough look, especially, I mean, you're a freshman, you're going to have struggles as freshmen, like growing pains, but with a pick 6 in 3 straight games, and you start have to ask some questions with Dante here, and wondering how long is the leash for Chip Kelly and Dante? It's a question worth asking.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just 3 interceptions that I don't know. The first one is it's the opening drive. It has to be in his head at this point that he's thrown an interception on the opening drive in the last 2 games, you would think. But one thing I think people forget about that first drive and that first interception, the play before he got away with one. It went off the defender's hand. He could have thrown a pick on the play before. So you think, I'm never going to say someone should be overly conservative, especially at the quarterback position, but you've thrown an interception the last 2 games on the opening drive. You get away with one that probably should have been picked, and yet on the next play, you look left, you wait, and then you hit Logan Loya way too late. And one thing that's kind of ironic about that play, we praised Chip Kelly, we praised Dante Moore for getting out of the pocket in the last game. We know in Utah he was struggling in the pocket against Wazoo. They got him out of the pocket, rolling to his right, making a lot of throws on the run, and yet on that interception, he's on the run. He throws way too late, opens up his body. Like I said, the second one, hit as you're throwing. That's just a disappointing play with Carson Steele and the tight end there not able to pick it up. The third one, that's the worst of them all. You're throwing an out route, near side. J. Michael Sturdivant doesn't even look like he's really running that hard of a route. You could say he should have ran a better route, but at the same time, I don't think anyone expected Dante to make that throw. He's not at all open. Easy pick six. You don't see pick six that easy. The one last week was a great play. This one was really easy. So 3 eye-opening interceptions in terms of how disappointing they were for Dante Moore. Wasn't all bad. Like I said, he was able to roll out a lot this game once again, had a couple really impressive throws on the run, but it's kind of ironic. Both of the touchdown drives, both before the half, before the pick six, and then in the third quarter, really jump-started by Colin Schlee. He had 4 plays, 4 consecutive runs for 45 yards on that second quarter drive that set up the first touchdown. And then in the third quarter with Schlee and also Keegan Jones, who is getting a lot of touches now, they were able to march down the field and help set up another touchdown. Colin Schlee, he got hurt in this game. We don't know what the state of his injury is, but what does he add? What are your thoughts on the involvement of Colin Schlee going forward if he can play?
Yeah, if he's going to be an option moving forward, I mean, we've seen Chip really just use him as a running back and really attack the defense with his legs, because he has proven to be a very formidable running back on the ground, or quarterback on the ground, rather. And we really haven't seen that much from Colin Schlee in the passing game, which is very ironic considering he is listed as a quarterback on the depth chart. And he was a very good quarterback at Kent State before he came to UCLA. Yeah. And so, yeah, if we do see him moving forward, it's definitely going to be more in the running game than anything else, because he just adds another dimension there, and especially considering how often UCLA goes to the run. We've seen with Dante and his struggles in the passing game kind of forcing UCLA's hand a little bit to run the ball. Obviously, we've seen Carson Steele, TJ Harden start to develop a little bit in the backfield, especially with Steele, who I believe has had back-to-back 100-yard rushing games at this point. Yeah. So he's really starting to come into his own there. But yeah, just for Colin Schlee, if we do see him again, it'll be in the running game, definitely not in the passing game, I don't think.
Yeah, and it was a really great performance for the entire run game. Not only did, like you said, Carson Steele back-to-back games over 100 yards, 22 carries, 110 yards, averaging 5 a pop. He had a touchdown. And it was a really good game, I think, for the offensive line and the running backs, in my opinion. Not in Chip Kelly's opinion. It was ironic. After the game in the press conference, he said he wasn't happy with the run in the first time he answered a question about it. Then someone asked him again, why weren't you happy with the run game? You rushed for 284 yards. And he said, once again, he felt like it was a lot of big plays that kind of hid the audience from disappointing runs. I don't know if I necessarily agree. I thought it was a pretty consistent performance from the run game. Carson Steele, like I said, 110 yards. Colin Schlee adds 80 on 6 carries. But TJ Harden, 9 for 47. Even Keegan Jones gets involved, 3 for 31. So I thought it was a great performance from the running game, and really not the running backs doing anything above, amazing, but not the offensive line doing anything amazing, kind of both working well, playing solid. I thought it was a solid game in the run game. The passing game, not so much. Like we said, Dante Moore finishes 15 of 34. Like you said, he's completing less than 50% of his passes, just 168 yards. So that one touchdown, pretty solid throw to Logan Loy on a drag route while he's being hit. And he was hit a lot this game. He did say that after the game, that the number one thing is recovery. He said not reviewing plays. He said the number one thing is going to be recovery, and then obviously working on getting better. We'll talk about the defense before we then go to our tier list and our chipometer. We're going to talk about Chip Kelly a lot in that chipometer. But let's talk about the defense. On and off performance, I'd say for them. Oregon State, a great running attack coming into the game, and they looked very solid running the football once again. But I think a lot of big plays that we weren't really expecting. What do you think of the secondary? Disappointing performance from them for sure?
Definitely worst game of the season for the secondary. It's not a question in my mind. I mean, on points alone, yes, UCLA allowed the most points it has allowed this season. And I guess last week against Washington State, that was probably somewhat expected considering how good that offense was. But this Oregon State offense really wasn't all that impressive going into this game. I mean, yeah, you have DJ Uiagalelei, and then you have some good running back options, but really nothing that interesting, nothing that really excites you as a defender going against an offense. And so I think definitely with the secondary, the main issue, as you mentioned, a lot of chunk plays, especially in the red zone. I think 2 of those touchdowns for Oregon State were passes, either 20 or 30-yard passes. And then we saw the kind of connection with Uiagalelei and Jake Velling was his name?
The tight end.
The tight end. And so it looks like the secondary just got caught like sitting ducks out there a lot of the time. Maybe a lot of zone, playing a little too deep, giving the quarterback too much of a cushion to hit his guys and ultimately get some scoring plays. But yeah, I think it seemed like they were trying to go for a bend but don't break, but they just broke on multiple occasions.
Yeah, like I said, that's kind of been, at least in my opinion, I know I was talking with Joseph about it last week about whether or not this defense was truly elite after what they did against Wazoo. I think he was a little more on the they are elite side than I was. Like, I felt they were more of a bend, don't break type of defense that was also able to force a lot of timely turnovers. A lot of times Wazoo was in the red zone. They were able to force fumbles, interceptions. They did do that in this game. They forced a fumble at a key time, got UCLA the ball at the red zone or at midfield. They were only able to turn it into 3, but also some missed opportunities from the defense in this game. The defensive lineman, Jake Heimlecker, drops a really easy interception, and then Oregon State goes on to get a field goal there. And then also you mentioned Velling, the tight end. The play before he had the touchdown, DJ just throws one up to him, and the ball's floating in the air forever, and yet the tight end's able to come down with it. You think if that turns into an interception, things could look a lot different. And I agree. The secondary overall, though, disappointing performance. I thought it was the worst game of the season for Jalen Davies, who I'm super high on. I think he is not only the best defensive back on this team, but I think he's a better defensive back than I think the conference gives him credit for. But he got burned a couple of times, miscommunication with Alex Johnson on that flat route for a touchdown early in the game, and then he got burned on a little fake corner and deep post. He got absolutely scorched, and DJ was impressive on those deep throws. You got to give him his credit, but it was definitely I think the worst performance of the season for the defense overall, and we'll see how they can bounce back against Stanford. But I think it's a good time now to transition to the player tier list. If you are unfamiliar, we have a tier list. It'll be up on the screen. We made a couple adjustments after the Wazoo win. I believe we moved Alex Johnson to all UCLA after his performance. I think we also moved Logan Loya and Carson Ryan. Yeah, that's right. Up from just a guy to solid starter. And then we moved Devin Kirkwood from liability to just a guy. I'm going to make my first proposal for the tier list change. I think it's time to move Dante Moore down. We have him at solid starter. I think we're going to move him to just a guy unless you disagree. Do you disagree?
I mean, I really don't. I mean, based on it, just like I said, he seems to be getting worse and worse, and there's nothing that tells me otherwise that he'd be going a different direction. So yeah, it's looking like just a guy territory is very real for Dante right now.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic calling a quarterback just a guy, but solid starter just doesn't really seem fair right now because there's people certainly online that feel like he's holding the team back. So it doesn't seem fair to say he's a solid starter.
It's a crazy discussion we're having this about Dante Moore, who was so hyped going into the season.
Yeah, but he's a freshman, and I think a lot of these are freshman mistakes. We'll talk in the Chipometer about whether or not he's being coached properly. Another change I'm going to propose, tell me if you disagree, I think we moved Sturdivant down from all UCLA to solid starter. We just didn't see much from him. I'll pull up the stats real quick. It was not an impressive performance. 2 for 19 from J. Michael Sturdivant. That's not all UCLA. Do you disagree? Can we move him down?
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to talk about J. Mike for a while because I feel like we really haven't seen a huge game from him yet, which has surprised me.
I think in terms of talent, he's all UCLA, but maybe it's more the quarterback and coaching, but nonetheless, production-wise, I think you have to go solid starter, right?
Yeah, it comes down to production. You can have all the talent you can have, but if you're not producing on the field, not helping your team, then you're going down a tier, no question.
Yeah, I think Logan Loya deserves to stay. He had a touchdown and almost 50 yards. I don't know if anything else really needs to be changed. I was debating moving Kane Medrano and Muasau down to solid starter. I feel like they haven't been superb, but I think for now, I think we leave it as is.
Yeah, I think we can keep them there for now.
Yeah, we don't want to overreact. That being said, we now move to the Chipometer to end this episode. Do we overreact with this Chipometer? There's people calling for his job. You know how it is in Westwood. What did you think of his coaching job? Where do you think the Chipometer belongs after a disappointing loss to a good team?
So usually I'm not one to pin losses on individual players, but I think this is more on Dante than Chip, which some people will definitely disagree with. But I mean, just you give away a pick 6 that's so easily avoidable. You give away 2 other interceptions, one of which just completely, or probably both of which are mostly inexcusable. The mistakes are really piling up for Dante at this point. And when you're making that many mistakes, there's only so much your defense can do to keep your team in the game. Yeah. We know how good UCLA's defense is, but there's only so much they can do if Dante keeps chucking up interceptions like that. And so I think Chip, I mean, obviously he's the guy who puts Dante in those kind of positions, right. So it does come back to him in some respect, but it's also coming down to Dante to execute where Chip puts him in the game. And so I really think this is more a loss on Dante than anyone else, which a lot of people disagree with. So I'm interested in hearing your take.
I mean, I agree to the most part, but at the end of the day, not only is Chip Kelly an offensive coach who his job is to make the offense perform, but this was his guy, right? We know there was a lot of debate about who was going to be the starter. He's the one who decided to go with a true freshman quarterback. I agree with the decision. I'm pretty sure you agreed with the decision. But if you make that choice, the blame is going to be put on you when the freshman makes freshman mistakes. You don't really blame a freshman for making freshman mistakes. If it's DTR as a redshirt senior making freshman mistakes, that's on him. If it's a freshman quarterback making freshman mistakes, your job as a coach is to be able to make the team better and overcome those issues. I agree that the pick to Sturdivant, I don't know how you can really defend it. Even the first pick was kind of, it's obviously it's on Dante. Chip Kelly's not on the field, but at the end of the day, arguments could be made. They could have run the ball a lot more. They had amazing success on the ground. They felt like he didn't use it enough. We haven't seen Kyle Ford at all. The tight ends were used a lot last week. Didn't see them that much this week. Keegan Jones, every time he touches the ball, does something amazing. They're not still not getting him the ball enough. And you could have seen Colin Schlieven getting more involved earlier in the game without the success he had. But don't want to be Monday morning quarterback here and make all these accusations after the fact. I agree. I'm been called a Chip Kelly defender a lot in at least the DB office. I think it's fair to put him between the middle and bottom right now. I feel like that's fair. Disappointing loss to a good team, though. A very good team that I was lower on than most. I got proved wrong there. But you think between middle and the bottom for Chip Kelly's placement on this beautiful little chipometer we're going to have on the screen?
Yes. Yeah, definitely middle to bottom, definitely for sure. And we'll see how that pans out against Stanford. In some weird world where they lose, we'll see what happens there. But
if they lose to Stanford, I think we're going to break the chipometer going down to the ground. But there you go. Player tier list, chipometer, UCLA knocked off in Corvallis. We'll see about the state of this UCLA team, the state of this UCLA program. Feels like they're out of the Pac-12 championship race in the last year of the Pac-12, but a couple friendly games coming up for them, so we'll see if they can bounce back. But that's going to do it for this episode, this recap of UCLA's loss in Corvallis. As always, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts to listen to the audio version. If you want to look at Jack's beautiful face back on the camera, go to UCLA Daily Bruin on YouTube. Transcript will be available on dailybruin.com. Thank you so much for watching, and we will be back with a preview of the Stanford game coming up. Take care. Bye-bye.